Okay, then the reviewer claims to have found or claims to have some a minor issue with the paper, that there is a minor issue. The author assumes that before doing the choice of their sexual orientation, page 4, first paragraph, all individuals are in the middle of Kinsey's scale. This is ridiculous. I did not claim that anywhere in the place mentioned, and nowhere else. I just focused on some individuals who are indeed in the middle of Kinsey's scale, and there can be no doubt that some, not all, individuals really are there. The dilemma was personally formulated thus. Imagine further that you position yourself in the middle of Kinsey's scale of homosexual identity and are thus quite comfortable in view of both male and female genitalia. This is simply a presupposition of the dilemma. The dilemma arises only for those in the middle of Kinsey's scale plus other conditions: infertility, humans ought to multiply, come what may, and homophobic environment. Nowhere did I claim that all individuals are at some point in time in the middle of that scale, or that the dilemma presents itself to all males. Then the reviewer says, however, if there is a genetic, or continues, however, if there is a genetic factor increasing female fertility and male propensity to choose homosexuality or to become homosexual, then the choice any individual does should depend on his genotype. Which is not the case in the author's model, either verbal or game theoretical. My reply: why not? The choice may perfectly well depend. I speak about choices as also a choice can also be deterministic or determined. Why not? The choice may perfectly well depend on the genotype, if there is one which causes the trait, if there is such a crazy about men gene factor. In that case, those dilemma case males with the genotype crazy about men and thus becoming gay will do better than those without that genotype, or not having that genotype, having a different genotype. If there is no such genotype, those becoming heterosexual will do better than those becoming homosexual. If I do not know if the reviewer completely understood the dilemma. Decision theory also makes sense in a wholly deterministic context. Some people do not see that. The reviewer continues, in the same paragraph, page 4, first paragraph, the author assumes that the adolescent is infertile. How can this, I mentioned this while discussing the original article, how can this individual have a gain Y if he becomes heterosexual? See the payoff matrix. Now, here the reviewer has obviously missed one or two lines. I star in the text the relevant words. Page 4, I said, imagine you're an adolescent, accidentally infertile male in a homophobic environment, and neither your infertility nor the homophobia can be remedied. Page 6, the profit of an undisturbed heterosexual life in the homophobic environment is worth Y utility units, while the highest preference of the agent is to have a family larger than average, that is in this case one with the crazy about men gene, an outcome worth X utility units where X is greater than Y. And I said the latter assumption is the only bit of arbitrariness in the model. However, to take some somatic for your own body, not for your gene offspring type of evolution, to take some somatic just for the reproduction of your own body cells, to take some somatic survival risks and suffer hardships through homophobia, I mean, in order to increase the number of offspring sharing at least a part of one's genes, that seems a familiar, adaptive and uncontroversial presupposition, and it would only surprise if Y greater than or equal to X held true. Now the reviewer says, finally, now comes a good argument. Finally, the discussion and interpretation of the results are too long, not necessary, and unjustified to my mind. I'm sorry, Mr. Einstein, your results are not necessary and unjustified to my mind. Or, Mr. Newton, your last treatise was definitely too long, we cannot publish it. Furthermore, some arguments are really strange and not understandable to me. For instance, on page 9, lines 1 to 3 and lines 7 to 11. What are the use of Einsteinian scientists here? And what does quantum tunneling theory has to do with evolutionary psychology of sexual orientation? My reply: Einstein was opposed to the view of irreducible chance in quantum mechanics. His quote, the quote, "God doesn't play dice." Some particles are in so-called entangled states, where some micro particles are in so-called entangled states where one is in state A when the other is in state B, or vice versa, but state A and B never occurs if some background and observation requirements are fulfilled. It may be the case that whether it is AB or BA is determined by mere chance. A similar kind of mutual causal influence could be present, that was my hypothesis, in the case of homosexuality and female fecundity. The two traits may come in pairs and develop at exactly the same time. This I mentioned as a mere possibility, and my reply here simply is that the reviewer is one of those who indeed should have skipped that passage or should simply have recommended deleting it. But that is not a basis on that provides no grounds for rejecting the paper altogether. In conclusion, I do not see why that paper cannot be published. The only flaw that the paper really had at that point in time, I had already eliminated in the version I now present and in the version I subsequently sent the editor. But that editor, who did indeed take some time to think about that decision, in the end the editor replied, "I have thought about this and I am afraid that I have decided to stick with the original decision. I am not quite sure where to recommend you go with this article as it stands. I suspect that you might fare better if you substantially overhauled it and simplified the style of expression and so forth. Currently the points you are seeking to make are perhaps too many in one go. You are sharpening a number of axes, and the move to homophobia does not flow too well." Again, a very good argument. I'm sorry, Mr. Einstein, the move from your special relativity theory of relativity to the general theory of relativity does not flow too well. I'm afraid we cannot publish that. Oh, I'm afraid, Mr. Einstein, with your relativity theory, you are sharpening a number of axes. So many things are affected by it. You shouldn't do that. Just sharpen one axe, and then try to resubmit it somewhere. And another one gut argument follows again. For the purposes of of the journal, I didn't say anything for that journal. I just said J. For the purposes of J, blah blah blah, I would have been looking for a contribution that perhaps moved discussion about such models rather than focusing upon the dynamics of one particular view, of one particular model, the Camperio-Chani model. So basically it says, it's not what I want now. Even if your results are true, even if you gave an explanation of homophobia that is valid and that is consistent with an explanation of homosexuality itself, even then I cannot publish that because I want to publish something else now. This is how science and the publication business is obviously this is how it's done today. Thank you.